Very good morning. It's Penuel, the Black Pen. Haven't gone live in quite a while. I've been trying to make better quality videos that I pre-record, and then upload. But I realized that for today's discussion, I don't think my phone's memory will allow me to film for like 15 to 20 minutes. It might go for maybe even an hour. So I figured let me go live. It's a very important, very sensitive topic. And I'm going to give it the time and the pacing that it deserves. Today I'm speaking about parental alienation. I'm speaking about the Children's Act and various things that have to do with children in particular. I'm still going to try and keep it as short as I can, but I'm not going to limit myself because, like I said, this is a very important topic. As some of you know, I have 6 children from 4 mothers. I know a lot of you judge me. It's fine. It's your opinions. It's your beliefs. It's your morals, whatever the case may be. My children are happy. My children are healthy. And I believe their mothers, who are very strong, beautiful, independent women, are happy as well. And they're happy with my children. And we're doing our best to raise these kids. I'm largely a present father, except for my one son. I contribute to my children. I believe my children love me. I speak to them very regularly. I visit them for the ones that are in the country. And I really, really enjoy being a father. I believe I was born to be a father. It's within me. My father loved children. My mother loved and still loves children. I love children. 6 for me is not enough. I believe I have a capacity and a propensity and an appetite for even more. So I'm going to try and see if I can push to get to 10 children. And once I get to 10, I'll then assess, and then I'll try and see if I can get to 20. Of course, it means I'll need to find willing women who are beautiful, who are intelligent, who are strong, who are willing to deal with the insanity that is me, and who just are happy to build a nation, an empire, generation, a bloodline with me as well. So that's my qualification as a father. I lived with 2 of my children for 8 and 6 years respectively. And then I've had visitation and access to my other kids as and when, because they generally lived with their moms. I've written a book called Parenting with Penuel, with a provocative title, Hey Man, Fuck These Kids. For those of you who have gotten it and read it, it just talks about my experiences as a dad, speaks about various topics, some of which I'm going to cover today. And it's just, I guess, a man's perspective on parenting and not from a woman's perspective. I've got a lot to get through. If you'd like my book, of course, you can get it in PDF for 50 Rand. You can send me a DM, whether on Facebook or on Instagram or on Twitter. On Instagram and Twitter, my handles are @GodPenuel, which is one word. Yeah, man, let's get to it. The first article I'm going to read for you is from news24.com. Do I want to read this first? No, I don't want to read this first. I want to start with the Children's Act. A lot of people don't know about the Children's Act. These are very, very boring government documents, but these are documents that we're meant to be reading, besides just tweets and besides reading junk on Facebook and other platforms. Empower yourself with knowledge on how this country works and how the laws of this country work. The Children's Act 38 of 2005. We didn't have a Children's Act before, so this act came in 2005. The Children's Act 38 of 2005 intends to give effect to certain rights of children as contained in the Constitution, to set out principles relating to the care and protection of children, to define parental responsibilities and rights, to make further provision regarding children's courts, to provide for the issuing of contribution orders, to make new provision for the adoption of children, to provide for inter-country adoption, to give effect to the Hague Convention on Inter-Country Adoption, to prohibit child abduction, and to give effect to the Hague Convention on International Child Abduction, to provide for surrogate motherhood, to create certain new offenses relating to children, and to provide for matters connected therewith. It commenced officially on the 1st of July 2007, and then it was amended on the 1st of April 2010, which is one of the things I want to speak about, because in April 2010, unmarried men, unmarried fathers finally got a chance to have automatic responsibility of their kids, which they didn't have before. Automatic parental responsibilities and rights. There are two different ways in which a biological unmarried father can acquire full automatic responsibilities and rights. I need to highlight that mothers acquire full responsibilities and rights of a child just for being a mother, just for being a woman and giving birth to the child. So it obviously makes sense biologically, but legally it's sad because it shows a bias against the father. The father's rights and responsibilities are not automatic. Firstly, he must be living with the mother in a permanent life partnership at the time of the child's birth. Alternatively, if he is not living with the mother, the father, an unmarried father not living in a permanent life partnership with the mother, must satisfy the following criteria. He consents to be identified as the father or pays damages in terms of customary law, and he contributes to or has attempted to contribute to the child's upbringing for a reasonable period, and he contributes to maintenance and expenses of the child for a reasonable period. Whilst the inclusion of payment of damages reflects positively on the indigenization of the act, what is of concern is that this may be excluding fathers who are unable to afford the payment. There is a lack of clarity in the act about whether an unmarried father has to meet all the criteria in Section 21B to obtain automatic parental responsibilities and rights. Paying damages doesn't automatically make you a father. Not paying damages doesn't mean you are not accepting rights and responsibilities. Where a father is in denial, the mother can ask for a court-ordered paternity test, a DNA test, where the court will force the father to give of his blood and then match it with the child to actually confirm. If the father feels like he's being pushed, whether damages are being asked or whether the mother is saying, maintain the child, this is your child, and he feels like, I don't know if this is my child or not. When I look at the timeline, I don't think I was having sex with this lady, or I didn't have unprotected sex with this lady, or I believe she may have been cheating on me, or for whatever reason, when I look at this child, I don't think this child is mine. The father can also approach the courts and ask for a court-ordered paternity test or DNA test where he can validate whether this child is his or not. We know shows like Utatako, which have highlighted this and have exposed a lot of our mothers and our grandmothers for being filthy, lying cheaters who are making a lot of men raise children that are not their own. Again, with learning the acts and the laws, which a lot of people don't know, this is from a website called babyyumyum.co.za. It was written on the 26th of September 2019 by Virash Srikisen, advocate, mediator, and director, Fair Practice. Can you hit from a place of love? In a society fraught with gender-based violence, is physically punishing your child teaching them how to learn the difference between abuse and discipline? On the 18th of September 2019, the Constitutional Court of South Africa ruled that corporal punishment in the home is illegal. This ruling outlaws any physical punishment a parent may use on their child, such as hitting or spanking, in the name of discipline. The defense of reasonable chastisement, which parents used when charged for physically harming their children, no longer applies and is deemed unconstitutional. It was argued that this defense allowed parents to conduct themselves in a manner that would otherwise be considered assault if inflicted on an adult. So from 2019, you could no longer hit your child. I know a lot of you still hit your kids. A lot of you say, spade or rod, whatever, beat the child or whatever from the Bible. Guys, it is not legal to hit your child. It might be moral, it might be the right thing, it might be what's best for raising your kids. I've hit my kids as well. I believe in hitting kids, but it is illegal. It is a crime, it is assault. And in the same way, a lot of you out there, including mothers, are going to feel like, no man, but there's nothing wrong with hitting a child if you've been warning them many times. That's the type of mindset a lot of men used to have when it came to laying their hands on a woman. Because back then, women was treated as second-class citizens and almost treated like children. So it would happen that a man would warn his wife, like a child, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, and then hit her, slap her, whatever the case may be. So it's the same type of psychology. I still believe in hitting children. I believe it must be done from a place of love. I believe it mustn't be done from anger. I believe you must explain to the children why you're hitting them. I believe you must not hit your kids as and when they do something, rather calm down and hit them. But that is illegal. What I'm telling you is an illegal act. If I hit my children and someone sees it and opens a case, or if my children know the law and go open the case, I will be charged with assault. You can feel however you feel morally about it. If you would like to challenge this law, of course, this is how we admire groups like AfriForums, where they come up with groups of lawyers and they put together cases to go and fight some of these laws for the betterment of our children and our families. I just want to highlight another piece that I found here, journals.co.za, Sabinet, African journals. This is a piece, a report that was written, and this is just from the abstract, which is a summary. South Africa has a high number of unmarried and absentee fathers. Several factors have contributed to this phenomenon. For example, legislation which did not give any unmarried fathers automatic responsibilities and rights concerning their children may have contributed toward the rate of absentee fathers. The New Children's Act, which came into force in 2010, as I said, the Children's Act is from 2005, and then it was amended April 2010, now provides for automatic responsibilities and rights for unmarried fathers who meet certain criteria. An unmarried father who has consented to be identified as the father and who have paid maintenance and cultural damages may now automatically acquire parental responsibilities and rights. This suggests a justified gender imbalance within the Act as still privileging unmarried mothers. There is thus a need for support structures that influence positive father-child relationships, particularly among married fathers. This is very important because I've got a story that I've shared on social media. A lot of people have seen my post on Twitter. Some have seen some of my videos. If you ever go to YouTube and you type in Penwell Zulu Khosi Mlotshwa, there's 3 or 4 videos there of me speaking about my son Zulu, who turned 9 on the 1st of May, and my struggles gaining access to him. I wanted to speak about the processes of what I call alienated parents, but I'm going to get to that article. But I'm speaking about this in particular because a lot of fathers are struggling with access to their kids. A lot of fathers don't know their rights and responsibilities. A lot of mothers, unfortunately, don't know the law, and they don't know their own rights and responsibilities, and they don't know the rights and responsibilities of men as well. Not only the mothers, because sometimes the mothers are either young or they are just inexperienced. So they normally get dominated, bullied, controlled by their parents, their mothers, their fathers, who want to dictate to them how they should treat the father of their child and how they should treat their child. As I've said before, as far as I'm concerned, there are 3 ways of looking at having children. The first one is the fully cultural way, which is still practiced in certain villages, where you are not meant to have sex before marriage. Children are meant to be had within a cultural marriage. But if it so happens that a girl and a boy sleep and have a child before marriage, the boy is punished, kumela hlawule, and pay a penalty. And it's not him, it's his family, in the form of a goat to cleanse this girl's family. The girl herself is punished because she has violated her family's upbringing. You should not be sleeping with a boy. You should not be sleeping with a boy unless you're married to him. And then from there, there's prescriptions on, is this child going to be raised under the girl's father's home, whereby she keeps the girl's father's surname, or will the boy and his family go and lobola the child and then take the child under their wing and do all the rituals there and then take the child under the surname, even if the boy is not married to the mother. Then there's the Western legal way, which is the one I'm speaking about today, which is very clear cut. You know, if you guys are married, it's fine. As I said, if you're living with your partner and you guys have this child, as a father, you have automatic rights and responsibilities. If not, there's a criteria that you have to meet. But outside of that, if you guys are parenting happily, it's fine. If you're not, then you approach the courts. That's how it works legally. And now, unfortunately, black people have taken a mixed masala lokshin type of version where they want to mix culture, they want to mix Western, and it becomes a huge mess. And unfortunately, the person that suffers at the end of the day is normally the child, as in my case with my son Uzulu, who I've spoken to twice this month on his birthday, and he called me another time later. I've tried about 3 times thereafter to call him again, sent the mom SMSs. Unfortunately, I haven't been lucky. But I'm hoping as the boy grows up, as people speak about my story, even people around him, that he will yearn for his father and I will have access to him and continue providing for him, continue raising him, etc. I want to read one more article before reading about parental alienation, which is fundamentally what this video is about. EWN.co.za, Eyewitness News. This article was written on about a year ago, is what it says here, about a year ago, by Lungelo Matarenga. Stats SA, almost 70% of black children live without biological dads at home. A Statistics South Africa report has revealed that among the various population groups in the country, black children aged 0 to 17 were the least likely to stay with their biological father at home compared to their peers of other races. Stats SA on Thursday released the Children's Education and Wellbeing in South Africa report conducted in 2018, which takes a look into the lives of the country's children under the age of 18. The report revealed that only 31.7% of black children stayed with their biological fathers, compared to 51.3% of colored children, 86.1% of Indian Asian children, and 80.2% of white children. I'm going to read that in reverse. So it's essentially about 70% of black children don't live with their biological fathers, about 50% of colored children don't live with their fathers, about 12% of Indian and Asian children don't live with their fathers, and about 20% of white children don't live with their biological fathers. Across all four race groups, between 74% and 93% of children stayed with their mothers. What does that mean? Because you'd be like, no, but if they're not staying with the father, obviously they're staying with the mother. The truth of the matter is some children do live with their biological fathers and don't live with their biological mothers. Some children do not live with their biological mother and their biological father and normally stay with grandparents. So it might be the mother's parents or it might be the father's parents. And then there are cases where some kids are either being raised by elder siblings, so they live with their elder siblings, or cousins, elder cousins, or sometimes they live with their aunts and uncles. And in even more extreme cases, you find children that are being raised by mom's friend, dad's friend, some relative, some neighbor, etc. When broken down across the 9 provinces, the percentage distribution of fathers who stayed with their biological children followed similar trends across the provinces over 4 years. Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Gauteng, and Northern Cape showed a slight increase in the percentage of fathers who stayed with their biological children. A decline in the percentage of fathers who stayed with their biological children was observed in the rest of the provinces, with the Northwest presenting the largest percentage point decline of 6.1% between 2014 and 2018. In 2018, the Western Cape had the highest percentage of homes where children stayed with their fathers at 56%. So 56% of children in the Western Cape live with their dads, while the Eastern Cape had the lowest percentage at only 25%. Only 25% of children in the Eastern Cape live with their biological fathers. That's from Eyewitness News. One of the things I want to touch on is a piece that I've read about absentee fathers, which I've spoken about to some of our politicians and our ministers. It was a report that was tracking absentee black fathers and how they surveyed this information was to look at if the fathers were present at birth in the hospital and also to see if the mother had written the father's name on the birth certificate application form. And one of the things I explained to these people is that having been on the ground myself, having spoken to a lot of black women, a lot of them are advised either by their own families, sometimes by the nurses in the hospitals, and sometimes by the father himself, don't put me on this form. Number one, because it's going to be easier for you to apply for a SASSA grant, child grant. It's going to be easier for you when you apply for no fee schooling for the child. It's going to be easier for you to get assistance because no one will ask for my ID as the father. No one will ask for me to be present. Some of these fathers are present, but on paper it looks like they're not there because the mothers want to access this government assistance and other assistance from elsewhere much more easily. Some of the fathers, of course, are traveling somewhere. So they might have a child in the villages in town somewhere and they're working in Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town as examples, and they send money home. But that's never captured because once you start capturing that stuff, it's going to become more difficult to gain access to government and other non-profit organization assistance. Parental alienation. This article was written on the 3rd of June 2019 by Bashira Park from news24.com. Parental alienation has officially been recognized by the World Health Organization, but it's been a violation of South Africans' children's rights since 2005. On the 25th of May, this was in 2019, on the 25th of May, the World Health Organization officially updated and adopted the 11th International Classification of Diseases, ICD, in which they included a description for caregiver-child relationship problem, or as many understand it, parental alienation. In their description, they write of parental alienation as a substantial and sustained dissatisfaction within a caregiver-child relationship associated with significant disturbance in functioning. A Centurion-based clinical psychologist, Dr. Marali Falun, refers to parental alienation as a syndrome and, quote, parental alienation is a set of processes and behaviors conducted and enacted by a parent to deliberately and knowingly damage or sever the relationship between a child and another parent with whom the child enjoyed a prior loving relationship. A child will express disapproval and even hatred toward a parent they loved and respected before the separation or divorce. The voice of the child can influence the parenting plan, and if we do not understand the dynamics of parental alienation, it is very easy to buy in or to even become part of that alienation process. Symptoms of parental alienation. As Dr. Falun explains, parental alienation occurs when one parent deliberately tries to damage the relationship the other has with his or her child. It often happens when parents are going through a not so amicable divorce and a child becomes notably more distant and detached from one parent. According to Deribus, the South African Attorney's Journal, published by the Law Society of South Africa, we can look at the affected child's behavior for the symptoms of parental alienation, which may include the child experiencing feelings of ambivalence or complete hatred of the targeted parent they once loved, while thinking their other parent is perfect and deserving of their love. In the case of a disagreement between the two parents, the child will not be interested in the side of the alienated parent, the rejection of all contact with the targeted parent, as well as the loved ones of said parent. Frivolous excuses when they are questioned about why they are rejecting their targeted parent. While they may provide senseless explanations for the rejection, they'll maintain that the decision was theirs and only theirs, without influence from the other parent. They will not feel any guilt or remorse for alienating the targeted parent. According to Dr. Falun, a child will often make accusations towards the targeted parents and in a scripted manner, none of which will make any sense. This has much to do with them being unknowingly manipulated and at the same time not fully understanding the situation. Parental alienation in South Africa. South Africa has a long way to go when it comes to openly discussing parental alienation and seeing it to be a factor and a significant one in the courtroom. Bertus Preller, a family law and divorce lawyer at Bertus Preller and Associates Inc. in Cape Town, explains on her website, in many cases, before our courts alienated parents are exposed. In many cases, before our courts, alienated parents are exposed to false allegations of domestic violence against their ex-spouse or partner, false allegations of physical, emotional, sexual abuse, or neglect against their child. In family law proceedings in South Africa, a child's best interests are paramount, and therefore allegations of abuse generally result in the instant pause of direct contact with the child, while fact-finding, safeguarding, and clinical assessments are undertaken. It goes without saying that parents who are then unable to see their child experience a presumption of guilt and a need to prove their innocence. Although not much has been done to officially recognize parental alienation in South African courts, the law always advocates for the best interests of the child. I think I'll stop there. Why am I raising this? Of course, I'm raising it on behalf of the many fathers, many good men. If you look on Facebook, if you look on Google, there's various WhatsApp groups that I've set up as well of many good men who are struggling to see their children. either because of the mother or because of the mother's family. And they're crying out there. There are men that commit suicide daily because they can't see their kids. They fall into depression and they take their own lives. And society generally doesn't care, because as much as we speak about gender balances, gender equality, we don't recognize that men have feelings too. You must man up. A man mustn't cry, And because, as we've seen the biases there, and we see them in biology as well, the man is just seen as a support function in the raising of a child. He's not really seen as a parent. He's seen mostly as financial aid, and as and when the mom is not available, he's seen as a babysitter. But fundamentally, he is not seen as a full parent of the child. People will ask, where's the mom? Why is the mom not here? Come on, you're just a man. Sometimes even from the man's side of the family, his own parents, his own siblings, his own support structure will tell him, but the child is with the mother. What's the problem? I once sat with a magistrate in Pinetown, close to Durban, and I told her that my child is living with the grandmother, not even with the mother. I would like to take my child. And the magistrate was like, what's the problem? The child is with their grandmother. Why is it a big issue? And I asked, do you know the Children's Act? And she said, please quote for me. And I was very broken, and I went to go and complain. And luckily we got a different magistrate, because I felt this person is not acting in the best interests of the child. A lot of mothers are not acting in the best interest of the child. They act in the best interests of themselves. This nigga cheated on me. This guy once hit me, which does happen, of course. This guy's not providing for his child. And she feels, because she is God over the child, that she will keep this child away from the father, which is illegal, unfortunately. Domestic violence is a thing. And if a man has hit you, go and open a case. If for whatever reason you feel he is a danger unto your child, be very comfortable to take him to court and explain in front of a magistrate, explain in front of a family advocate and a social worker why you believe he is not fit to be a father, and allow them to offer you counsel. If the guy has been interrogated, if they've questioned him, if they've questioned the child, and they send out a report believing that as much as he may have hit you before, it was maybe an isolated incident, or he's been rehabilitated, even if he has been to prison, he still has a right to have access to his child. Because in the same way, a mother, for whatever reason, can hit the father. She can destroy his property. She can even kill him. But when she comes out of prison, or even while she's in prison, she also has a right to have access to her child, as long as there is no proof that she is a danger to the child. So a lot of us, unfortunately, are keeping children away from the other parent, and we're doing it wrongly so. If you're struggling with access to your child, there's a couple of avenues you can look into. One of them, of course, is speaking to the other parent. And this is not just for men, it's for women too. I've been speaking to and counseling a lot of women who are struggling to gain access to their children, either because the man is a problem, or normally they quote the man's the man's mother, the children's paternal grandmother, who tends to be the dragon in the story. It's very rare that you hear it's a grandfather, but that can happen as well. Sometimes the dragon is the father's new partner or new wife, who is withholding these children from the biological mother. The biological mother might not have a job, might have low income, and this guy has a lot of money, he's well off, he has a nice home. So he has these kids and he keeps them from the mother. If you're struggling, try and speak to your partner. Preferably, if you can, do it via WhatsApp text, SMS, and email, and keep that as proof if ever it needs to be escalated, so that you can say, I've tried, I've sent the emails. If you can CC people that are within your support base and show them that, look, I've tried my efforts, that's good, and that's going to work as evidence. If that's not working and you have access to the other parent's family, please try and reach out to them. Try and have a sit down and explain your issues. I would like to gain access to my child, etc., etc. Please also understand, under the Children's Act, that maintenance and access are separate. What does that mean? It means that if you don't have money and you're not maintaining your child, you still have a right to see and raise your child. And the immediate ask is, ooh, shame, he wants to raise a child he's not feeding and not supporting. Guys, we have a 74% youth unemployment. People aged 16 to 35, 74%. And that's both male and female. A lot of women don't have jobs and don't have an income. How are they raising their kids? They are raising their kids through the SASA child grant. Their kids get free healthcare from clinics and hospitals. Their children go to free schools and they normally get fed there as well. So the mother in herself doesn't have money. Some of these mothers are being supported either by a new boyfriend, a new husband, or by their own family. Allow the father the same privileges. Give him the SASSA card and let him go queue as well. That card is not yours, mom. It's for the child. So it's not like you have this superpower. It's the child's money, which means it's not yours. It doesn't mean you have some superiority over the father. Allow the father to also ask his family to support the child. Allow the father to walk the child to that free school, to go and take the child and queue at the free clinic or the free hospital. Allow him to parent. Ooh, he doesn't know how to take care of a child. How will he learn? How will he learn if you don't allow him? Men will learn to be good fathers if you allow them. A woman who has never babysat, who has never raised a child, won't know until she's taught. No, there's natural mother instincts. A lot of that is rubbish. There's a lot of women who are not good mothers. There are a lot of women who don't want to be mothers. There are a lot of men out there who are the ones waking up at night, making formula, changing nappies. And when the child scrapes their knee, who do they run to? They run to dad. Because we're just different. We're different people. Some of us are more nurturing. Some of us are not. Allow dad to earn his daddy stripes and his badges as well. If you're struggling to reach out to the guy's family, then you can go to the courts. Of course, if there's cultural remedies for you, if you live in a village somewhere, you can speak to Induna, the chief in the area. If you maybe guys go to a church, you can try and speak to your pastor to try and intervene. If there are other leaders in your area, maybe try and get them to intervene so that you can gain access to your child. Failing which, then you go to the nearest family or children's court, or maybe if you don't have one there, try and find out if there's a family advocate's office close by. The services there are free. However, there are people that do pay lawyers to go and fight for them. Sadly, in this country, our legal system very much favors people with money. A lot of things are fast-tracked if you have money. A lot of parents end up gaining what you guys used to call custody of their children, in particular because they have these fancy lawyers that fight. Because unfortunately, our courts, which are a government instrument, are just like all other government departments. They have a lot of people who are lazy, incompetent, inefficient, and who literally drag their feet there. So the people that have lawyers, the lawyers come there and they crack the whip and they make sure that the law is taken to effect. I wanted to speak about custody quickly. We used to have this thing called custody where I have custody of the child. In South Africa, we actually don't have custody anymore. What we have is something called primary residence or primary caregiver status. That means the child generally lives with you. And if you have primary caregiver status, the other parent then has rights to visitation and access. There's something called a parenting plan that gets drafted. Once you sit with the magistrate, and the magistrate commissions that to the family advocate or a social worker to sit with both parents, mediate and find out what's going on, make sure that they put the best interests of the child first, and then they sit and they draft this pack, which explains the child is going to be living with this parent, and then this other parent has got a right to visitation and access, which is generally 2 weekends per month. As the child gets older, it includes midweek sleepover, and then it's half of school holidays, sharing public holidays. On Father's Day, the child must be with the dad. On Mother's Day, the child must be with the mom. On the father's birthday, the child must be with the father. On the mother's birthday, the child must be with the mom. On the child's birthday, the parents can choose to split the day in half if it is reasonable to do so. And then Christmas and New Year's, they can alternate every year. That's the standard. A lot of the guys in the industry are not willing to tamper with the standard. They're lazy, they're whatever. And the other thing they emphasize is this is just a template. It's a guide so that you guys at least have something. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, what they say is you do not have to abide to this. If you guys get along, if you guys get over the anger and the hurt and the whatever, or you see that the other parent is actually a decent parent, or the child craves their parent, or craves the parent's family, then you guys can decide to do that on your own. You don't have to come back to us. We're giving you this basic guide so that at least something is being done. It can happen if the parents live closely together that they can have joint primary caregiver status where 1 week, but that is largely driven by the parents and if they work really, really well together. So you approach your family court, children's court. From there, they will ask you to fill in some forms to explain your story. And then from there, they'll maybe make you sit with a family advocate who will maybe try and contact the other parent, see if they can resolve this thing on their own. If not, then it gets sent to a magistrate where you have to go and issue a summons to the other parent, hopefully with the help of the police or a sheriff, to make sure that they appear in court. After they've appeared in court, they give their story. The magistrate will then decide, I will now send you guys to a family advocate and force you guys to have a mediation and to draft a parenting plan. If the other parent is accusing the one of violence or whatever, we will then launch an investigation to go and find out what is the issue here. And then after that, there will be a report with a social worker, with the family advocate, and then the magistrate will then decide and give a court order to say, no, mom, dad, you can actually only have supervised visits, or you have full access and visitation, or primary caregiver status must be taken from one parent and given to another. Maintenance court is completely separate, although maintenance is discussed in the parenting plan. Obviously, circumstances change, and you guys can always update that. And people move around, especially because of work. So those things do change as well. Unfortunately, some of us, I'm speaking for myself, speaking for a lot of you that have engaged out there. And number one, I want to say thank you to everyone who has contacted me, telling me their good stories of how my story fighting for Zulu has inspired them to go and fight for their children. Some have managed to gain access to their kids just by approaching the girl, the mother, or the father and speaking to them or speaking to their families. Some have taken the matters to the magistrate's court and they've finally won. Some of the fathers I've spoken to, investigations were done and they ended up getting primary caregiver status of their child. Those are good stories of children that are getting loving, caring parents that are going to be involved in their lives moving forward. A lot of you are still struggling, unfortunately. I hear a lot of horror stories. A lot of you send me DMs telling me how you're struggling. It's very tedious for me because a lot of the stories are very long. People send these long paragraphs, which I don't have time to read. But I appreciate you guys reaching out to me. And obviously, I'm making this video so that you guys can share it and so that you can actually understand the process. Sadly, there are a lot of evil people out there. And a lot of the evil people are intelligent people. What does that mean? It means they know a lot of these laws. They know the laws. They know the courts. And at the same time, they know how to work around them. And they know that the courts are inefficient. And they know how to lie. So many women, as you heard with parental alienation, so many women lie to the children and to the courts about domestic violence. They lie about the father not being good enough, etc. And they paint themselves as these angels. A lot of these people, like I said, are controlled by either the grandmother or the grandfather or both, or other people in their families or their spouses to lie and paint the other parent in a negative light. We live amongst evil people who are malicious. And when they put their selfish interests first, they destroy the child and they destroy your relationship with your child. The idea of not gaining access to a child that you've birthed, that you maintain, it's almost like maintaining and loving a child that is dead, except knowing that that child is still alive. It's absolutely heartbreaking and it needs to stop. A lot of us have sisters and we've never seen the father of the child and we never ask, where's the father of this child? Or we've got female cousins. When you see a child being raised by a grandmother somewhere, even if it's at the next door neighbors, go ask. There's a chance that there's a parent out there who doesn't have access to their child and you don't know. If the courts have failed you, if the families have failed you, if your cultural leaders, if your religious leaders have failed you, some of us have taken to social media to tell our stories. Number one, to let the world know, guys, there's another side to these things. I've been bashed many times, especially by women, here on Twitter and elsewhere on YouTube as well. Bashed, asked questions. What did you do to the mom? No normal woman would deny a man his kids. And I've also been like, I'd also like to know. I'd like to know. I've obviously given my story. You can go check it. I don't need to rehash it. But I'd also like to know, what have I done? I'm lucky that in my case, there's another man who went and married my son's mother, and then they got divorced. And he is also struggling with access and visitation to his daughter. And people that know the both of us have seen that maybe this girl is the problem. And I'm like, I've said it before. I was hoping that she would have changed by now. I was hoping that at least she'd tell her story. And also because she understands the law, she has missed so many court dates. And no magistrate, unfortunately, has issued a warrant of arrest. I've taken police to her home twice, and they've refused to arrest her for violating a court order, violating the law. And she gets to enjoy this. I've spoken to lawyers and asked them, what are the chances of a father actually getting primary caregiver status? And they were like, unless you can prove that the mom is really, really violent, she takes drugs, she's a danger, it's almost impossible. the best you can fight for is visitation and access. And lawyers obviously have told me as well that, my man, you're going to pay out of your bums for lawyers. They're going to want to take this thing to the high court. They're going to be chasing summons. They're going to issue arrests. And if you're dealing with an evil human being who really wants you to suffer, they will keep making you chase them. In my situation, my son's mother has moved to 3 different jurisdictions, from Randburg to Pretoria and to KwaZulu, constantly running around. And lawyers are like, every time she moves, that court in that jurisdiction will close the case and ask you to go and open a new one afresh, as if you've never done it before. This stuff costs money. It takes time. It drains your energy while you're not seeing your child. And I'm lucky. I've got a strong support base. And on top of that, of course, I've got another 5 children who absolutely adore me, who I have access to, who I love very much. If you guys follow @PenwellsKids on TikTok, on Instagram, I post my children there all the time. I love my children. I love being a father. I'm present. And yet there's a son of mine, a beautiful young boy, who doesn't have access to me, who doesn't have access to my amazing brother, who doesn't have access to my amazing sister, to my amazing mother, to my amazing extended family, and to all my friends that are in my life who could be imparting so much knowledge, resources, feeding him, etc., etc. Denying my son that, while the mom has access to my son, her family has full access to my son, and because I've now spoken to her ex-husband, he had full access to my son, and his family had full access to my son. Meanwhile, I don't. School teachers that don't know my son have access to my son. Random neighbors have access to my son, and I don't have access to my son. The guys that work at various shops where they walk, random strangers when they're traveling, have access to my son, and I don't. And I've been maintaining this little man since before he was born. So we're dealing with people that are intelligent and that know how to twist things around and make themselves seem like victims and refuse to come out and paint us. And because I'm a man with a penis, you're obviously going to assume I did something bad because of the gender wars that have been programmed out there. That's why it's important for us to tell our stories and tell our narrative and own our narrative. And not just me, other fathers out there. You heard the stats. There are Indian fathers that don't have access to their kids. There are colored fathers that don't have access to their kids. There are white fathers. If you ever go to the children's court, because I've been to them for years, it's been 9 years now, you'll get there, you'll see Muslim people there. You'll see white people there. You'll see Chinese, or rather Oriental Asian, Eastern Asian people there. You'll see black people, of course, there. You'll see mothers struggling to access their kids because the father's being a cow. You'll find fathers there or mothers there with the support of their parents who are being very angry. You won't see this child over my dead body. Putting themselves selfishly first and not what's in the best interest of the child. The child yearns for the other parent because the other parent lives within them. They have the other parent's blood and mind in them. And not only the other parent, but the extended family and that family's education and resources. We need to get more involved. Find out the kids that are being raised by your gogo or omkhulu, that are being raised by a single mom. Where is this child's father? Where is this child's mother? I'd like to know. It's none of your business. Why is it none of my business? Why is it none of my business? And I'd like more of you to tell your stories on social media, not to destroy. This is not for destruction. This is actually for building. Shows like Tatako, even though they have like a negative black aspect, your black families are broken, they are reality. And they're giving other people the strength to know that I can do a DNA test. There are shows on Omoja Love where mothers and fathers are trying to see their kids and they're being held back. And you're like, that's cultural. And have you guys followed cultural prescriptions? Why was your daughter sleeping with this man if she was raised culturally? Who has decided that you mustn't give this child access to their father? And that's where the law is to come in. And it's sad that Western Roman Dutch law dominates cultural law, but it's because cultural law is no longer serving the people. Why are the children not being put first? Fathers want to raise their kids and fathers don't have jobs because capitalism has destroyed all of us and we don't have money. Mom has access to the child, she has full rights and responsibilities. Why can't I have that? So I think this is a fundamentally important and sensitive topic that we continuously need to talk about. Fathers for Justice is a good organization for you to join. And it's not just for fathers, it's for mothers as well that are struggling with access to their kids. I'm hoping that as time goes on, I will do more of these videos. As I travel around the country and I meet more of you guys, as I maybe host talks, we can speak about these things and you can open up to me. I can't see my child. I'm ashamed of not seeing my child because I don't have money. I can give you solutions on how to be a decent parent even if you don't have money. I can give you those solutions. For the mothers that are out there, don't be bullied by a man and his family. For the men out there, don't be bullied by a woman and her family. Don't even be bullied by your own family. That's your child. You have rights to your child and your child is yearning for you. Your child may not even know that in their subconscious, they're yearning for you. It shouldn't take the child being of ill discipline at school, dealing with their own depression, struggling in other aspects of life for people to realize there's something wrong here. This child is craving abantu bakubo. And abantu bakubo is not just the father. The father is just one half. There's the mother's side. If you guys want to do cultural ceremonies, do them on both sides of the family. Let the child embrace and acknowledge both sides of the family because the child is a function of both sides of the family. These are part of the reasons why I'm no longer cultural and no longer Zulu. Because some of these things hold us back. That ingane yakwayise, ingane yababa. No, ingane yababa, no mama. We live in a modern world, and if we want to live and thrive and succeed in this world that we live in, the child must embrace both families and must access the knowledge and the resources, both their parents and their parents' family members and their parents' friends and any other opportunities that they have. This is Penuel the Black Pen. Like I said, I'm looking to have more children. I love being a father. My children that are going to grow up and watch some of these videos, I love you guys very much. I think you guys have like the coolest dad in the world, if I may say so myself. But I love you guys. I want you guys to be strong. I want you guys to be independent. I want you guys to be independent thinkers. I want you guys to do the right thing. And I want you guys to fight for what is right at all times. I love you. I believe in you guys very much. I'm happy that my blood courses through your veins and my thoughts are in your brain. And you guys will become great people one day. I love you guys very much. Let's do better to rebuild our families, co-parent happier, and make sure that our kids are happy and that we are happy and that we are thriving. Love you guys very much. Cheers.